Hello, how the tech are you? We are fully merged with proof of stake and we're ready to go. Unfortunately, we also lost 15% of our value in the past week. That's
yeah, but we do that every week.
Just kidding. This is our weekly tech show on Echoplex Media. We like to talk about tech stuff and science things and news related to tech and science and all that good stuff. I am historian Matt. I am a, good for nothing, lazy bones type person in Florida right now. But I like to talk about tech news, and I got some, actually don't have that much that's that much newsworthy, but I definitely have two tech topics today. The first one is AI art is showing up on stock photography websites. We've been talking about AI generated art for a while, and I'll give an update on what's going on there. And the second one is wireless EV charging, what's going on there and when it's coming to the US. So you with the pink mic.
All right. I am HK Perrin, and I am a software engineer, so I mostly do software engineering news. And this week we've got a big one. Rust is coming to Linux 6.1. So I'll talk more about that. And then my second one is, could Ubuntu have a new software center soon? Maybe. All right, over to Dave.
I'm Dave, and I have the Star Wipe. I'm the producer of all the shows here at Echoplex Media, and I am a podcaster. I have two stories this week. I have one about an app that Ford might make you install so that their self-driving cars don't run you over. And then I have a story about Intel changing some of their naming, especially on their lower-end processors.
Cool.
Go ahead, Matt.
I will go ahead with my topic. So my first one is AI art on stock photography websites. So this is a real quick hit, but I wanted to cover it real quick. But basically, some artists have started submitting their AI generated art to stock photography websites like Shutterstock. So if you search for AI generated or Midjourney on Shutterstock, you'll end up with thousands of results. Apparently, Midjourney seems to be the most popular generator on Shutterstock, and Shutterstock is not prohibiting AI generated art, at least not yet. They haven't updated, and it's one of those things where rules haven't caught up with technology yet. But so if you generate art with, I think Midjourney seems to be, as I said, was the most popular, but Midjourney and some of the other AI generated art programs do not really make images big enough to fit Shutterstock standards. So you'll have to upscale them if you're actually interested in doing this. But finally, artists are doing this, of course, so they can generate this art and make some income at the same time. And of course, there's a lot of controversy about whether AI generated art is actually art and who owns the copyright, stuff like that. Although I think it's pretty clear. I think copyright's actually pretty clear on that. But what do you guys think? You got any questions, comments?
I was under the impression copyright is pretty clear, and it's that you don't own the copyright to it. Nobody owns the copyright to it.
I thought it was the opposite because that's interesting, because I thought it was the opposite because you are creating the text to generate the artwork, right? And then it's running through a program to generate the output. That's very similar to the way that compiling works for programs itself. So, you write code, you write software code that is then interpreted by a compiler to create an output, which is the finished compiled program that you wrote. And you actually own the copyright to the final compiled program, even though there was another program that actually created it.
So what I have here is from Smithsonian Magazine, March 24th, 2022. The U.S. Copyright Office rules AI art cannot be copyrighted.
I did not know that.
There you go. Your analogy seems pretty similar, though. The only thing I would say is, there is a one-to-one relationship between what you write in code and what you get out of the compiler.
Yeah.
And you don't have that same kind of relationship with AI generated art because it's based on this random seed.
I don't think one-to-one's quite the right word for it, but there's no like AI involved, and it's there's a very clear conversion process, right? It's a there's a word I'm trying to think of that is escaping me right now.
Well, what I mean is, like, if I run the same code through a compiler twice, I get the same output.
Yeah.
I get the same program out both times. Whereas if I run the same prompt through an AI twice, I don't get the same output. Unless I'm also defining the seed of the random seed.
That's true, yeah.
And in that case, like,
well, maybe next week
become copyrightable.
I'll follow up on copyright issues with generated images, since I didn't realize that at least Copyright Office is going in a different direction.
This is great, though. This means I can plug in a bunch of random phrases that we talk about on the other shows into DALL-E Mini, and then upscale it and slap it on a shirt, and then tell their lawyers if they come after me to go F themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly. DALL-E doesn't own the copyrights.
All right. So I'm ready for my next topic. It's a little bit longer, a little less precise, but wireless EV charging. So basically, if you have an EV, car, electric car, and you've done any charging, you know how much it sucks to find a place that actually connects to your car properly and will charge at an appropriate speed. If it's working at all, there's been a lot of problems with Electrify America was the big one that apparently all over the country their chargers are broken all over the place. Well, wireless charging it's been around for a while, but not too long ago we got a worldwide standard developed for it. So the Society of Automotive Engineers, or SAE, developed a worldwide standard, and it was specifically to combat this problem, like or they've been focusing on doing this to combat the problem of wired chargers where you have different cables, different connectors with different car manufacturers and such. But with wireless charging for EVs, they've created one standard that is a worldwide standard. So you don't have to worry about what kind of wireless charger you're getting, connecting to. And right now in South Korea, there's the Genesis GV60, which is sort of, I think it's a crossover SUV type vehicle that it's electric and supports wireless charging. But you can only find these wireless chargers in, right now, Genesis branded charging stations and home chargers in South Korea. China is looking into install more wireless chargers as it expects their auto industry to transition completely to EVs, but I don't think they have a whole lot of them yet. But so that's the big question where wireless charging is going to end up in. Now, a lot of people are concerned about efficiency, but actually wireless charging is about 90 to 92% efficient, which exceeds most plug-in charging, which is actually it's in the mid 80% range. When you have like really high quality components and high quality plugs and stuff, they can actually get plug-in charging up to around 94% efficiency, but that is very uncommon. So actually wireless charging is pretty good a charging option. It's not very many places that do it. And the standard has just appeared more recently, 2020. But and just to be clear, when I'm talking about this kind of wireless charging, although some people have talked about embedding it into roads, most of this is not wireless charging that's like embedded on a roadway where you're driving at 60 miles an hour and charging while you're going. This is like you're charged in a specific parking spot that has the charger either embedded in the parking spot or is just sitting on top of the asphalt or something like that, and you're straddling this charger. But the big question is, when will wireless charging come to the US? Unfortunately, even though the Genesis GV60 is apparently available in the US, it's not very common. The stations are not here, so you're not going to get any stations. There are actually no stations that exist in the US that have wireless charging, except in pretty specialized stuff, probably like testing stations or something like that, but nothing open general to the public. Most likely we'll see home wireless chargers come before the stations do, but hardly any manufacturers right now, any auto manufacturers, support wireless charging. But I would look forward to it. It's not a big deal for me. I did get a nice plug in my house for plugging in my charger for my car, but I could totally see, I already have stuff set up where I could, park in exactly the same spot in my garage every time. And if I just had a little wireless charging plate and my car supported it, it would work great for charging my car. But what do you guys think? Wireless charging? And I don't think either of you have electric cars, so maybe asking the wrong audience.
I was surprised to learn the efficiency. I thought wireless charging efficiency was a lot lower than that.
Yeah, it apparently has to do with, I don't go into the details. I am not a electrical engineer by any sort, but apparently some of the conversion stuff they have to do in wired charging is kind of done automatically with the wireless charging. So that conversion and stuff they have to add in reduces the efficiency of the wired charging, but you kind of get it for free with wireless. So it ends up being very comparable.
Are you trading off though? Is it like going to charge slower? Like, cause I know like my phone charger, like there's absolutely no way. There's no wireless charging pad that charges my phone as fast as, let's just say, like a wired fast charger that came with my phone.
Well, I think the initial pads are kind of low power. So they were talking like up to maybe 3 kilowatts, which is not great, but not terrible. It's a slower charge. I don't know if that's what I'm getting or what I'm getting out of my wired charger, but they do say that they have the ability to go up to like at least 75 kilowatts of charging power, which will apparently charge pretty quickly.
That just, I don't know. That just sounds terrifying. I know that it's safe. It just sounds terrifying. Like if you walk between it, does your liver get cooked? Like sous vide?
Well, I'm sure there's going to be the conspiracy theories that think they're going to die from the radiation from these charging pads.
Oh, I can't wait.
What if you accidentally swallow a charging coil? Will it then be dangerous?
You're going to have more problems if you are capable of swallowing a charger pad. I don't know.
Especially a charging coil made for a car.
Yeah, for the car. Dave had the image up earlier where you can see it's a pretty good, like it's almost like what
it's a little bit bigger than a Major League Baseball.
About that size.
We both had the same thought.
Yeah.
It actually does look like it's a little base too. Like,
yep. Yeah.
Like I'm just expecting someone to be like taking a big lead off that charging pad.
It's just a general rule though. Don't eat electronics.
Yeah. Unless it's made for that, like the thing that goes in your colon and takes pictures looking for cancer. You can do that one.
Yeah, you can eat. Don't eat electronics unless it's specifically advised to do so by a doctor.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
And then maybe still get a second opinion because you're eating electronics.
That's all I got. So,
all right. Well, I'll flip over into Rust coming to Linux 6.1. And you might be thinking, well, we haven't even reached Linux 6.0. We're on 5.19. Well, 5.20 was renamed to 6.0, which is just around the corner, and the Rust patches didn't quite make it into 6.0, so they're coming in 6.1. That will be the first kernel version to add support for Rust within its code. So things like drivers, Linux drivers that exist in the kernel can be written in Rust once these patches are merged in. And Rust, in case you're unfamiliar, is a strongly and statically typed general purpose language. It was developed at Mozilla since they officially supported it in 2009. It started in 2006 by a Mozilla employee as like a passion project, and then Mozilla saw promise and officially supported it. So since its beginning, the Linux kernel has only ever supported C code and assembly. No language has been hotly considered for inclusion since C++ in 1997. So 9 years before Rust was even created. So why is Rust coming in 6.1 and not something big like 6.0? The answer is because 6.0 actually isn't big. Like it might be big compared to 5.0, but the way Linux, Linus uses these version numbers, this version was originally going to be 5.20, but Linus decided that 20 was getting too big for a minor version number. And it's also not the first time it's happened. Essentially, the same thing happened with Linux 5.0 instead of Linux 4.22, and Linux 4.0 instead of Linux 3.20. So Linux has a history of once the minor versions get big enough, they're like, all right, it's like Linus in particular is like, all right, time to go next major version. But generally, compared to like the last major version jump, there is quite a bit that's happened since then. They were just introduced in minor versions. So any questions about that, you guys?
Yeah. Point of clarification. Rust is a systems language, so it's built for doing low-level type programming stuff and dealing with your own memory management and all that good stuff, right?
Rust does, I believe, have a garbage collector that deals with memory for you. So you don't actually have to manage your own memory, but you certainly can. Rust can do pretty much anything C can do. Some things it will tell you not to do, and the only way to do them is to wrap your code in what's called an unsafe block, where you're telling the compiler, don't bother managing my code. I know what I'm doing, and I'll fuck it up myself, please. Thank you.
Exactly. Do you know what kind of type of language it is? You know, object-oriented, procedural, functional?
It does have classes, so I believe it's object-oriented. I could be wrong, though, so don't quote me on that. But it does have classes.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't looked into detail on that, like that language yet. Usually pretty good on keeping up with new languages and checking them out, although it's not really in my, area of expertise. I don't do a lot of systems programming. Do more application programming and a lot of back-end server type programming.
Yeah, I watched a couple introduction to Rust videos, and it looks really cool. Like, the kind of things you can do some very powerful things in like very small amounts of code. So it's really, like, I think hopefully it's going to be the next evolution of code after, like, we've all kind of standardized on C and C++. Hopefully Rust will be the next thing to move into this, like you said, like systems design area where really we haven't had a whole lot of innovation in like a couple decades now.
And finally, do you know what family of languages it's under? Does it look kind of like C and C++, or is it something else like an algol language or something? Or
It looks pretty similar to C.
okay, so it's probably in that same family.
Yeah, I would put it in that family. It's I don't know what the real like intricate differences are, but from a overview perspective, it looks pretty similar to C.
Okay, cool. And I was surprised that C++ was not allowed with the Linux kernel.
There was a big push to get it in the Linux kernel,
Yeah,
but it was abandoned.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's been all C since basically the beginning. So this is quite a big deal.
yeah. Cool.
So moving on, could Ubuntu have a new software center soon? Yes, maybe, but also please. There is a new project that is a community-led effort to create a better software center for Ubuntu, and it looks very promising. If you scroll down there, you'll see some of the screenshots there. It looks quite nice. I would say certainly on par with what they have currently looks-wise, but their goals are to be, more friendly and more powerful and less buggy. It does not have Flatpak support, but the devs have not outright said no. They just said that they don't currently see value in adding it since Ubuntu doesn't have Flatpak support by default. So if you want Flatpak support in a software center, if you're running regular Ubuntu, probably GNOME software would be the thing to go with. I highly do not recommend Ubuntu's current software center. It is incredibly buggy in my experience, and it and snaps are a large portion of the reason I personally switched to Manjaro Linux. So it's really good to see potentially a better solution coming for Ubuntu users. So I'm really happy to see that. Any questions on that? Not that I know a whole lot about it, but maybe I can answer questions.
Well, the obvious question is, are they writing in Rust?
They're writing it in Flutter. I don't know if Flutter supports Rust or if it's its own language. So I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't realize maybe how bad Ubuntu Software Center is until I installed the current version of Ubuntu Studio and got KDE's Discover and was like, oh my God, this works.
Yeah, it works and it's reliable.
It's
holy shit.
It's fast. You launch it and then there's immediately things on the screen.
Yeah.
And I'm not on like a slow, I wasn't running like the old one on a slow computer or anything. It's like, it's bad. I don't know why it's so bad. I remember.
Well, part of why it's slow is that it's a snap, but that only explains why it's slow to come up first. But like even once you're using it, it's still slow.
Yeah. And it makes me nervous too, because like not for my desktop, but for my laptop, if there's like a firmware update, like for the UEFI or whatever, it's happening inside of there. And it seems like a very unstable place for that to be initiated. So I usually, if I see that there, I will go to the command line and do it from the command line because I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. I know that all it's doing is downloading a very small file and initiating it at the next startup. I'm just paranoid. With the Flatpak support, what do you suppose might be a reason that somebody wouldn't include it, like just in an operating system more broadly? Like what would be a reason? I don't understand like why maybe Ubuntu wouldn't have native support for all of the different ways to install an app. I mean, obviously not like RPM, or because RPM is not even it's not, it's not for a Debian based system at all. But like, can you do you know of a reason why it wouldn't be supported if it's like a all-in-one sort of thing that's just going to run on any Linux anyway?
Yeah, if we're assuming good intentions on Canonical, which I think is the right approach to do, I would say that they probably don't include Flatpak support because snaps give them more control over the ultimate user experience, and they want the user experience to be really good and within their control. And flat packs are kind of a little more Wild West. You know, you can add in remotes very easily, and you can add in whatever software, you know, could end up completely bricking your system. And Canonical would have no control over, like, you know, putting some safety rails in the way. So I think that's most likely the answer. But if you're assuming some more nefarious intentions on Canonical, which maybe this plays a part, maybe it doesn't, I don't know, I'm just putting it out there. It might be that they want Snap to succeed, and Flatpak being a competitor to Snap, having Flatpak in the operating system, people might discover that, oh, Flatpak is actually, you know, a better experience. So I'm going to move to Flatpak and just never touch Snap.
Yeah. I don't know which it is. It sounds like it's the first one though, because I mean, let's be honest. The Ubuntu and Canonical are a little bit handholdy, but I mean, that's because if you're going to install a Linux system for somebody for the very first time, you'd be hard pressed to not have Ubuntu in your top 3 for a brand new user, just because it works. That everything makes sense, even though, like we were saying, the Software Center is garbage. They could still find Audacity and install it, even if they accidentally install the Snap and it takes forever to load, and then it doesn't, you know, honor your theme preferences for the rest of the operating system, which I find odd that that it doesn't honor your like GTK theme preferences or whatever. But yeah, I think it's handholdy more than anything else. And I don't. What do you mean? Like a flat pack would just lock up your system? Because isn't it sort of sequestered from the system? Like it can't really break your system.
There are things that you could do that could let it break your system. So if you're installing a new Flatpak remote that's not FlatHub, the chances that you'll give something a permission just because it's telling you to are probably like fairly high. And then if it was malicious, it could certainly, like, you can give a Flatpak enough power to brick your system.
Gotcha. But that's again, that's why you would, if you install a Flatpak, you should be installing from FlatHub, where there are some guardrails, where people have ostensibly looked at it and made sure that it's not going to do something like that to you.
Yeah. Well, and to be clear, a Snap could also brick your system if you give it the power to, but Canonical has very strict control over the server side of Snaps. The client side of Snaps is open source, but the server is not. So there's no way to start your own Snap server, and there's no way to submit a Snap to the server without going through Canonical.
Just out of curiosity, is this new Software Center also going to be a Snap?
It supports being installed as a Snap, yes.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to it. It looked nice. I'd like to see what it looks like in dark mode, because they only had light mode up there, and what kind of monster uses light mode. But other than that, I mean, it looked better. But I think the problem with the Ubuntu Software Center isn't how it looks. It's if it navigated correctly and the things inside of it loaded quickly, it would be a great place to go find software.
Yeah. Or I should say, I believe it's in their roadmap to support being installed as a Snap. I don't believe you can install it currently as a Snap.
Oh, so it would be, you have, I mean, currently, since they're just working on it, you're compiling it, right? You're building it from source.
I believe currently the only way to get it is to compile it from source.
Yeah. I used to be terrified of that, and it's actually not that terrifying. There's several things that I run and count on every day that I've built from source here. Well, cool. I hope they fix it, but I mean, they'll find, I don't know, they've just never had a good Software Center. Like on a standard Ubuntu system, if I have to get stuff done, if I'm like installing, you know what I install? I install the Synaptic Package Manager, and then I go search for things in there, because you know what? It doesn't make any sense to a new user, but if you know what you're looking for, that's quick. And
Yep.
it'll remind you of your updates and stuff while you're in there too. It's fantastic. It'll even install your new software and your updates with one click of a button. I feel like that doesn't get enough love. But also, if you're new to it, you have no idea that the discoverability in there is just terrible. You have to know exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Also, the great thing about Synaptic is you won't accidentally install Audacity as a snap because it'll just grab it from the repository for you.
Yeah, you don't have to switch it from Snap to repo and back.
Or have both show up. And the other thing, sometimes both will show up when you search in the software center, and it's unclear maybe to a new user why are there two Audacities here? You know what I'm saying? Because up at the top, it's not, if you're not familiar with what's going on in there, up at the top, that thing that says Snap or includes snaps, you don't even know what that is. You don't know what that means. If it's your first time touching the thing and you just are like, oh, I have this old laptop, I'm going to try this Ubuntu thing, which is, I think, how a lot of people end up getting into Ubuntu probably. And so they're like, what the heck is this? Why are there two Audacities?
As much as I hate to say it, they should probably, if there's two versions, one's from the repo and one's from the Snap, they should probably hide the repo version.
The Snap will be newer.
Yeah, just have the Snap be the default, and if you want to get to the repo and you know what you're doing, have a way to get to the repo version, but just show and install the Snap version first.
Right, because for people who aren't going to investigate how to get it the other way, you're going to get the newest version, and the fact that it takes a little bit longer to load the first time for something like Audacity isn't going to matter. It's still going to run exactly the same. Well, that's really good news, but I am off of that. For production, I am taking the other machine that we do audio on here probably this weekend and getting rid of the old paradigm and putting on Ubuntu Studio with Plasma, and it has Discover, and it's not as pretty, but man, does that work. Man, does Discover work. So
Discover works, and it works really well.
Yeah, and it's clear what everything is in Discover. I almost wish they would just kind of build something based off of that, and build it in GTK or something, and just have that be the paradigm, because it's so fast. It's just so fast. I love it so much. I forgot like some of the things I liked about KDE. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that during the post game.
Yeah.
If it's okay with you, I'm going to head on over to my stories.
Yep. I'm all done.
Unless Matt, do you have any?
Nope, go for it.
I'm like, what software center do you like? Okay, I just have two stories this week. One is a story that I got from the Register. I kind of like the Register because they're like us. They're a little more snarky, a little more cynical. Kind of like to make fun of things a little bit more than we do, more than a lot of other tech places do. Well, here's an article that says, "Don't want to get run over by a Ford car?" There's an app for that. And what's going on here is I guess you're going to be able to get a Bluetooth LE app from Ford that will communicate with their self-driving cars and let them know, I'm walking here, and then the car won't run you over. I couldn't believe this when I saw it. I thought it was satire, but no. But the idea is that it's like another layer of protection so that you don't get run over by the Ford Mach-E or whatever. It's just very funny. Like, I'm thinking of like, oh, say you don't want to get run over by the car, so you should install this app and give us your location data. See, like that's what I'm hearing there. I'm like, what kind of permissions am I going to need to give the Ford Motor Company to do this? And it's not the worst idea, but I would also think there would be a way to do it without an app, right? Because if your phone has Bluetooth LE, it would see a device with Bluetooth LE and it wouldn't even need to connect to it or anything, right?
Yeah, well, the way to do it without the Bluetooth is called, actual AI that can determine the difference between a person and, a tree or something.
Or like just if there's something that's emitting Bluetooth, maybe like be cautious around it.
Right, don't run into it.
Probably a phone in a human's pocket.
Right. Yeah. Don't go barreling. Even if you don't think there's a person there, if something's emitting Bluetooth, maybe slow down a little bit.
Or maybe if you at all see something in the direction that you're going, maybe you should slow down and not hit it.
Right. I just think there would be, because if you have Bluetooth LE on your phone, it's definitely always broadcasting. And so I don't know what the app is for except to collect your data.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but I just thought,
Well, you just answered your question.
I just thought it was really funny that that I saw an article that said, "Oh, if here, install this app so the Ford doesn't run you over." It's like, this is amazing. And like I said, it's from the Register. They're a great tech outlet because it's mostly enterprise tech, but they do dish out a heavy dose of the snark when they see something like this. And so, shout out to the people at the Register. I got one more story from the Register. This is not snark. Well, it kind of is. It's like, don't say Pentium or Celeron anymore. It's just an Intel processor. And so that's all there is to it. They're going to be dropping the branding of Pentium and Celeron on the lower level Intel processors, and the branding will only be on like the Core processors, the Xeon processors, the higher end stuff. And that's the whole story. I don't know, like, it just makes it more complicated, I think, because then you're going to be like left with like a part number or a model number on the processor when you're trying to figure out what's in the laptop. Because for the average person, right? The average person, if the average person was buying a laptop and they're like, want something that's going to last a few years, you're like, oh, if you're buying Intel, just get a Core i5. You'll be happy for a while, But
yeah, why wouldn't they just get rid of one? Why do they have to get rid of both?
Right, just call them both Pentium and then have a one. What if it was a 3, 5, and a 7 on the Pentium? So it like worked. It was the same. They're lower level processors, but you're getting like, okay, this is the best Pentium. Now there's going to be like, it's going to be like 3402U. It's just going to be the name of the processor, and then people are going to be like, well, what is a 3204U?
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
Better than the 3203.
And
because like it's gonna be so confusing if you're like, I have an Intel processor, and it's like, oh, do you have like a Core i5 or something? No, I have an Intel processor. Yeah, but which one? The Intel processor one,
right here. That's got these five. It's got these 5 numbers next to it, and you're like, I guess that means you have a low end processor. Is it? Because you would think that as IPC and just the ability of these processors to do more with less becomes greater and greater, that there would be more focus on the low end, more focus on marketing and making the low end seem appealing. Because at the low end, when people don't want to spend a lot of money because they don't game, they're maybe not compiling things all the time. They're just like checking their email, like for cheap Chromebooks, for like a low end Windows laptop, or even like a low end machine that somebody might put Linux on. You'd think that you would want to do some marketing around that, because that's where there's going to, as these things get faster and faster and faster, you don't need the top. Nobody's going to need the top anymore. And there's going to be so much power down at the bottom that for the average user that it seems stupid not to market them.
And especially like, so Intel kind of dragged these brands through the mud. Like Celeron has always sucked, just always. But Pentium, like at one time, was a really good brand. It was like their like flagship brand, and then they just like dragged it through the mud by like branding these crappy CPUs as Pentium. And now everyone has these kind of like, if you have a Pentium or Celeron processor, everyone knows like, oh, you have a shit processor. And maybe that's why they're doing it. They're like rebranding to get rid of that connotation. But then it's just like, if you're just going to call it Intel processor, then you're just going to ruin the Intel brand.
Right. And they could just come up with another name. You know how Amazon has like Amazon Basics? Oh no, for them to do Intel Basics, what they would be doing is stealing someone else's IP basically, and then making a processor with it. But yeah, they could like do like maybe not basic, because that word has like a negative connotation, but like Intel Essential, right? So that like this
that would be good.
This is what you need, like something like that. So this is just like what you need to do your browsing and whatnot. Calling it like, but they're just, I guess it's just going to be these weird model numbers that nobody knows anything about. Do you think at the low end people even know or care though? Do you think maybe they did some market research and nobody even cares?
I'd imagine most of the people that are buying these are like people that are buying equipment for office workers, so they probably do know.
Yeah, because if you're just Yeah, if you need to give somebody a laptop to work on the go and they're, not doing 3D modeling or, any basic, anything computationally intensive, you're going to buy it from the low end. Absolutely. Not for nothing, the battery might last longer just because the processor's not crunching as much stuff either. It's weird. I guess like in a way it kind of doesn't matter because their competition down there is going to be probably ARM. And ARM processors have wild, crazy names. Like,
yeah,
naming schemes on that doesn't make any sense. So,
yeah, for that it's just all numbers, and even the numbers are hard to understand.
Yeah, because AMD like seems to have made the decision like below like Ryzen 3, they're not trying to compete. Like, and that's Ryzen 3 is the competition for the Core i3. And below that, they seem not to be trying to compete. So maybe Intel just figures, well, if it's confusing over there on the ARM side, let's just throw some fuel on this confusion fire and maybe try to get people to just be like, I don't understand, buy the Core i3. And they make make like $6 extra on the PC sale.
Yeah, to me, this seems like a really weird move.
And the other thing is, it might just be a failure of communication from some Intel marketing person where they are thinking about a new name and they're just going to get rid of these two kind of tarnished names and they don't know the new name yet, which, sometimes marketing people, like if they're communicating to somebody, just some journalist or whatever, they don't give the whole story because maybe they don't think it's important, but they should certainly have some name for something that isn't a Core or a Xeon, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that that's it. I wouldn't be surprised if that's it, and I hope that that's it.
Right, and I think the name Essential is a perfect name.
Yeah.
But they're not going to listen to me, and if they steal my idea, I don't have money for a lawyer, so.
Yeah, if you have like and I think the idea of having like the tiers, like the 3, 5, and 7, like you have an Essential E7 or something.
Yeah.
That would be like just below a Core i3.
Right.
That makes perfect sense to me.
But that would make sense, and Intel's been like behaving in a way that doesn't make sense for a company with their legacy and their reputation actually a lot lately. They put out these weird video cards that kind of suck. Like,
yeah,
like they're kind of all over the place, and they're starting to get their lunch ate like on the low end by ARM and at the top end by AMD. And I think they seem to be lacking in direction. And I think like getting rid of that Celeron name would have been a great idea, and then reviving Pentium as like the bargain, not the bargain, maybe bargain is the value proposition at the low end.
Make it actually make sense to buy one.
Right. Even do Pentium 1, 2, 3, and 4 just for like some nostalgia.
Yeah, because like even like the low end Pentiums were like minimum like $70, I think.
Yeah,
and it's like you can just buy an i3 for like $30 more and get 4 times the power.
Right. So yeah, they should. Maybe they're going to abandon the low end, and that's not what. Maybe, or they're all but going to abandon the low end here. You know what I'm saying? And they're not, but they don't want to go out and say that. That they're just gonna, maybe it'll be like so few processors on so few like specialized, like maybe it'll just be in like Chromebooks, or like, maybe they'll just be in like some kind of thin client type device, and then the i3 will actually just take up the low end of the consumer market.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows? I just know that was my 2 stories this week were dumb, and I'm glad that I found 2 dumb stories on one of the better tech publications out there. So, yeah, that's all for me. And during the post game for patrons, we'll actually put it out for a freebie because we talked a little bit before the show too, and I'll kind of point everybody over to Patreon. There's a couple other things I kind of wanted to talk about with some upgrades around here, and we'll link to a video I made about the studio and stuff. So, Matt, you want to read the show out?
All right. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, listening to us, or watching us on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe and maybe leave a comment. If you're listening to us on the podcast catcher, I guess they have like buttons. I don't know. I don't use them very often. So Well, whatever works. We definitely appreciate you listening to us. If you want to learn more about stuff from Echoplex Media, you can check out our website at echoplexmedia.com. They'll have a list of all the other shows on Echoplex Media. Most of the other ones go out live, and you can catch the live versions of those shows on twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. We've got there's a lot of shows. I don't even want to cover them all, but yeah, definitely check them out if you're into that sort of thing. A lot of more political or I don't know, conspiracy theory type stuff, but fun stuff to check out. And then if you like our show, you want to give us some money, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Echoplex. Yes, without the media this time. And we go out on, we have our radio going out on eplex.xyz or echoplexmedia.com/radio. And you can find us on Twitter at eplexm. Confusing still, with yet another name, but it's at eplexm. And then finally, buy our swag. We got some good stuff. New shirts, I think, came out. I got mine. I still got to wash them before I wear them. But you can get the swag at eplex.store. And that's all I got. So thanks again.